And welcome to the latest episode of Bad Morning News and a bad morning to you. We've got quite a few stories lined up for you today. And one of the primary ones is one that I was going to get to yesterday but didn't. So it should be relatively interesting to check into some TSA bullshit right off the bat. But before we do anything, some housekeeping. This is brought to you by Brave, the ad-resistant, tracker-resistant browsing experience. You can download that to support the show, and as long as you use it for 30 days, the show is supported. Additionally, you can get the Cash App, a Federal Reserve note and Bitcoin wallet that you can use with a Visa card. So feel free to check that out as well. Also, Liberty Mugs just got beer mugs, and they're mugs that you can use to piss off your co-workers while also consuming fluid. So consider doing that. And I guess that gets the sponsored messages out of the way. There's plenty of more ways to support the show in the bottom of the thing, description, whatever. It's already off to a brilliant start. So the thing that I was going to cover yesterday, I'll just touch on now. And then we're going to jump into some other stuff that wasn't going to be covered yesterday. But this is an article on the TSA, because we can never get enough of those. It's from Activist Post again. And it's federal whistleblowers expose TSA's Quiet Skies secret surveillance program for all travelers. It's by Nicholas West over there. It appears that, once again, the government narrative that TSA surveillance and groping is needed to keep Americans safe from the terrorists over there is nothing but a justification to violate the rights of everyone. Thanks to a group of federal air marshals displaying good conscience, we are now learning about a new program that shows the full web of physical and digital surveillance that is being employed by the government to track people beyond even the dubious, quote, terror watch list. Not only are these marshals ready to talk, they're equipped with documents. According to the group of marshals who first contacted the Boston Globe, the Quiet Skies program has been active since March. The group stated that immediate concern was registered when it became clear that they were being asked to observe and document. What they were being asked to observe and document was an expansion of the established protocol of putting attention on people connected to a documented terror watch list. Their duties clearly included domestic surveillance of people who were under no formal suspicion and had no reason to be targeted other than vague behavioral observations and or made it to the radar due to connections made by artificial intelligence programs regarding their data. The expansive list must be seen to be believed. So this is, I'm just going to read like items from the list right now.
Careful now, we don't want to get knocked off the air already.
Oh yeah, well, right. So the subject was abnormally aware of surroundings. If observed, checked any that apply below. Yes, no, or unknown. Reversing or changing directions and or stopping while in transit through the airport. Attempting to change appearance by changing clothes, shaving, etc. while in the airport or on the phone. Using the reflection in storefront windows to identify surveillance. Observing the boarding gate area from afar. Boarded last. Observing other people who appear to be observing FAM team and or subject. Excessive fidgeting. Sorry, this is This is section 2. Subject exhibited behavioral indicators. If observed, check any that apply below, yes, no, or unknown. Excessive fidgeting. Excessive
fidgeting. So basically, if you're a Tourette sufferer, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're a Tourette sufferer, huh? How about that? Excessive perspiration, which, by the way, both excessive fidgeting and perspiration apply to me because I'm a fucking caffeine addict with a fast metabolism, so I'm fucked already. Plus, I do pretty much everything here because I'm constantly, checking my clocks. But apparently, you're not allowed to do that anymore without being considered a terror suspect. Like, I always check around me. I use reflective surfaces to see who could be watching me. I fucking do this shit normally, and I'm not a terrorist yet. You know, there's time.
Well, I mean, it's just a bit ridiculous. It's like looking at your reflection in a storeroom mirror.
Well, and that's
most people do that just.
Well, and that's what
just
the operative
find a mirror.
is, that they would accuse you of using it to find surveillance.
Oh, of course.
Even if you weren't actively doing it.
Let's be honest. They're gonna do that to anybody who looks in a storefront mirror if they're gonna do it. So it's not even gonna.
We were watching you. Actually, I was putting on lipstick.
It's like, well, you were changing your appearance then. Ha! Caught you on the other one.
Yeah. I'm so glad I don't fly much. Facial flushing. Rapid eye blinking. Adam's apple jump, which would be if your Adam's apple twitched. If you've got like a stutter, they could accuse you of being fucking terrorist. Rubbing or wringing of hands. Strong body odor. Sweaty palms. Trembling. Cold penetrating stare. So that's me. Exaggerated emotions. Gripping or white-knuckling bags.
Oh my giddy on. This is getting ridiculous. Exaggerating emotions. I'm so glad to see you, Marvin. Right, you're coming to jail.
Why? Well, and they could just pull you aside to a room for this too. You could be one of the people quote randomly screened.
I can only speak to my own annoyance with going through these sorts of things because we never use the backscatter machines. And so every time we go to someplace like Florida, we wind up setting off all of the alarms when we go through the like manual scans because all of the sun creams that are made over here register as Class A explosives.
Mm-hmm.
So we always set them off every time we go through. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, at least you don't have wide open staring eyes. You're not touching your face and get this, other.
As to wide and staring eyes, you haven't seen my passport photo, mate.
Well, let me just say this, though. The other is relatively, like, terrible looking. Because the fact that they have a section for literally anything else added to this expansive list of bullshit, the fact that all of this terror bullshit still has a huge amount of subjectivity in the brain, but then you can just say, well, he was also tying his shoe a little bit much. Shit like that. You know, you could justify anything just by adding that word other. And Activist Post says, please see the full 6-point categorization at the Boston Globe here. So they have a link there, and you can go see the full 6-point categorization thing. But it's already pretty fucking bad, right? So in addition...
Incredibly so.
Yeah. So in addition to all of that, what we have here is subject's appearance was different from information provided. That's
Wait, what?
Lost. Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. So blah. I'm not going to read if yes, check any that apply below. Blah blah. That's all something that they would check. Lost weight.
What?
Gained weight. So, like, if they have it on their passport that they look like that they're like 190 and they look like they're 210 to you, you can say it looks like they have something on them that isn't their weight. Balding, graying, hair length or style change, goatee, visible tattoos, visible piercings, beard, mustache, apparent altered experience, explain. Which would be like, you know, fucking, you said you did this, but did you do this? Clean shaven, other again.
Other again.
Other.
It's like if you somehow evoked the divine power of Jesus in the mind of some man just by him looking at you, you will be arrested as a terrorist.
Yeah. Subject
Oh, man.
slept during the flight. That's four. That's subject slept during most of the flight, or subject slept briefly.
Oh my God.
And keep in mind, this is also that federal air marshals can watch you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, but I just find it weird that people. It's like, yes, we know when you are sleeping because we're watching you.
Yeah. General observations. This is section 5.
Oh my giddy.
Checked baggage. And it's like provide detailed descriptions of any electronic devices in subject's possession in AAR. So, checked baggage, in possession of cell or smartphone, in possession of multiple phones, used phone to talk, used phone to text, in possession of computer, seated in first or business class, used lavatory, in possession of any unusual items, traveled with others, met with others in airport, engaged...
Wait.
Yes.
Circle back a second. In first or business class? What, economy ain't good enough. You can't search economy.
Yeah, well,
I guess terrorists make so much money they can only go business class. I mean, come on. You can't expect them to go with all the proles, can you?
Well, I mean, admittedly, it would make it easier to smuggle explosives in or some other thing in if you had bigger seats. So there is something to that ish, but only if you're trying to write a book about how Orwellian the future is. But I guess the future is now.
Come on, though. It's like you're gonna spend. Yeah, you know what? You're gonna bomb this plane. Therefore, we're gonna make sure you go out in style. It just seems a bit odd.
It does make sense from a security perspective that you would need bigger seats if you wanted to carry more on there, and if you wanted to carry a whole lot, like a briefcase full of explosives, doing that would be very helpful, or just an EMP device that you could use to trigger a plane shutdown. There's always the possibility that there is something that they're carrying that would be easier to carry in first or business class, but it still sucks.
True, but I mean, I think the thing I was trying to point out is the ludicrousness of basically not looking at economy, but definitely looking at first or business, because you can get extra accommodation when it comes to your stuff in any class. You just have to be willing to pay for extra baggage.
Or just use a different plane.
Oh, yeah, that too. That's another option. But to be fair, it baffles me that anybody who is likely to fly and try and do so in comfort is immediately a suspect for a terrorist investigation if you fit a couple other criteria, of which all of them are so vague. Anybody can be a suspect and anybody is a suspect.
Yeah, well... So there's those things, and it's already getting to the sort of fever pitch where you're like, well, I guess anyone then. Okay, so traveled with others, met with others in the airport, engaged in conversation with others, subject initiated conversation with federal air marshal, carry-on baggage, other noticeable activity. There's that other again. Subject engaged in more than casual contact with airport or airline employee. Oh, man. So that's section 5. And then section 6 is relatively short. It's picked up at curbside shuttle, taxi, bus, or public transit. Picked up at curbside by private vehicle or obtained rental car for transportation.
So
and this is
basically...
arrivals.
Basically didn't walk off the airport is the only option that to avoid suspicion. And I think in the States that would probably be the most suspicious.
Right. Well, and to me, like okay, so yes, basically. And all of these things are pretty much something that like 90% of people would do. So to me, see, I don't know how this could even fucking be valuable, because you're attacking so many fucking people, he can't get to a person of interest. I mean, what do they have to hit? Like, because here's the thing: they apparently have to hit something from every section, but that's hard to fucking do.
No, it's like this is a noise generator, basically, the survey that they're having to fill in on people. Because the important thing about statistics is to pick out signals. And, like, yes, these could be signals, but they are so vague, anybody could do them. And even having 6 of them, anybody could do all 6 quite easily. You'd have to have like 7 or 8 plus some serious dodginess going on. I mean, yes, I will say that fidgeting and itchiness and all sorts of little details can mean that's suspicious. It could also mean that somebody has got some really bad dermatitis and they just don't really want to make it well known.
Well, yeah, I mean, what it could mean that they're like me and they take excessive amounts of caffeine to wake up on time for something like this, and I'm twitching and sweaty right now. I've got cold. I've got sweaty palms that are fucking making my mouse like visibly wet, and I'm twitching around a lot because I've had caffeine. So somebody trying to like make it to a flight on time, somebody who seemed nervous, fucking changing direction multiple times, maybe like they had fucking difficulty finding their gate, somebody fucking who was using a window as a mirror. All of these things could be somebody who's just fucking busy, but they might make your day even worse by pulling you aside into a room for a quote random screening. And like that's like all of this is designed to make it seem like they're like they're there to protect you. But keep in mind, the TSA has still not caught a single terrorist. So
nope. Not a single one.
And then they make excuses for that, like, well, how many terror attacks might we have prevented? Well, it's interesting that a federally funded institution gets so much leeway for having 0 tangible results and just like gets to make hypotheticals about it.
Yeah, rhetoric is quite strong with the state on this one. That's the thing. They are very good at making it seem like, well, because nothing's happened, it's obviously working.
Right.
Now,
well,
we've had so few terror incidents at all, simply because it's quite difficult from an international perspective to travel now. And the other problem is that for when I was young, and this is a very long time ago, to be fair, I remember the days when the TSA didn't exist and you were able to travel. And there was still terror incidents. There were things that happened. Planes still came down, but it wasn't something that then made everybody go full turtle and say we need to have state officials basically X-raying every single person.
Yeah, and you know, the like Camp in chat says that's the point, and I believe it is the point. Because and Greg, bad morning to you as well. Because effectively, what this article says is, as the globe relays, nearly anyone can become the target of one of the estimated 2,000 to 3,000 air marshals across the nation. All U.S. citizens who enter the country are automatically screened for inclusion in quiet skies. Their travel patterns and affiliations are checked and their names run against a terrorist watch list and other databases according to agency documents. The program relies on 15 rules to screen passengers according to a May agency bulletin, and the criteria appear broad. Rules may target people whose travel patterns or behaviors match those of known or suspected terrorists, or people, quote, possibly affiliated with someone on a watch list. If that wasn't concerning enough, these details aren't even the full extent of what the program could entail. In fact, the group of marshals themselves haven't been given access to all of the documents. The full list of criteria for quiet skies screening was unavailable to the Globe, and is a mystery even to the air marshals who field the surveillance requests the program generates. TSA declined to comment. Of course they did. Many of the air marshals have become so troubled by the program that they have sought legal counsel and have also recorded their concerns in conversations with one another. These concerns over everything from the inefficiency to constitutional and legal issues. Here's a snapshot of what was provided to the Globe. What we are doing in Quiet Skies is troubling and raising some serious questions as to the validity and legality of what we are doing and how we are doing it, one air marshal wrote in a text message to colleagues. Cannot make this up, the air marshal wrote in a message. One colleague replied, geez, we need to have an easy way to document this nonsense. Congress needs to know that it's gone from bad to worse. Several air marshals who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they're not authorized to speak publicly told the Globe the program wastes taxpayer dollars and makes the country less safe because attention and resources are diverted away from legitimate potential threats. While these new revelations might seem shocking to those who have not closely followed the expansion of the TSA, or those who are in the I've got nothing to hide camp, the shift to suspicionless tracking of American citizens has been taking place incrementally, and courts aren't doing much to stop it. As Mass Private Eye reported recently, a Philadelphia appeals court ruled that TSA agents can't even be sued for violations of body or rights. As I reported in March, and keep in mind that's when Quiet Skies is said to have begun, claims started to emerge from air travelers that their digital devices were being searched on domestic flights. Add all of the above to the increased use of biometrics in travel, and current abuses will pale in comparison to what is coming. We have to salute this group of marshals for contacting the public about what is taking place. Hopefully, this will lead to others coming forward in the true service of freedom by ensuring that propaganda about a shadowy terrorist threat doesn't lead to all that are presumed to be innocent falling into new categories of suspicion. So yeah.
Well, TSA is becoming what every libertarian said it would become. Basically, some form of travel police of vice and virtue.
And Greg says, it's a great show you have going. I probably don't have to tell you how helpful the reminders and notifications are on YouTube, but it's safe to say I tune in whenever I can. Well, thank you, Greg. I hope to see you in chat like every day, because we're going to be doing this every morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time, or as, you know, Lupinit calls it, the afternoon evening area.
Yeah.
He's
and just to remind, and just to quickly plug that, actually, if you are interested in listening to these at any time, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the little bell icon next to it so you actually get the notifications. Otherwise, you can forget about it.
Yeah, definitely. And hit that like and comment and whatever the masturbation YouTube thing I have to say is. But after that clusterfuck, which I think we all agree is bad news, but also really fucking laughable, let's get right into one of yours. I believe you were saying something about what was it? Mount Fuji eruptions.
Oh yes. So apparently, this is from the Telegraph in the UK. Mount Fuji eruption fears prompt Japan to draw up disaster plans. The Japanese government is to set up a disaster management task force after a new report warned that an eruption of Mount Fuji could blanket Tokyo with more than 3 feet of volcanic ash, bringing the city to a standstill. Japan has suffered a number of major national disasters already this year, with more than 100 people killed or missing after a series of typhoons caused extensive flooding and landslides in the central part of the country. The government has been criticized for failing to have disaster management plans in place and is acting more swiftly in response to this latest report. According to a simulation conducted by scientists at the Meteorological Research Institute, an eruption of Mount Fuji could deposit ash to a depth of more than 1 meter on the prefectures surrounding the iconic mountain and in western parts of Tokyo, just 80 miles to the east. The scientists studied 196 possible patterns of ash dispersion in the event of an eruption of the 12,000-foot peak, taking into account the scale of the eruption, wind and direction, and air pressure. So they basically have done a bunch of simulations to see what the impact of Mount Fuji would be. And of course, the papers have picked this up to say, imminent Mount Fuji eruption! Just to make everybody that extra bit scared. But yeah, they are now apparently spending quite a lot of money determining how to deal with a 4-inch ash cloud.
Yeah.
Because even that would be devastating. It would clog drains and any exposed machinery, such as air conditioning.
Well, poison plants as well and shit like that.
Loads of
kill
stuff,
animals.
To be honest. Yeah, and to be fair, it is probably overdue.
And speaking of which, by the way, there were huge portions of, I believe, Yellowstone shut down recently, and like they fear a super volcano eruption there, so there's possibility of that. But like in other California news, to anybody in any of the many wildfires that are out right now, and to anybody if affected by the Carr Fire or any of the other, which is fucking kind of funny in name, but to anybody affected by any of these wildfires, deep condolences. We hope you recover as soon as possible, and thank you to all the firefighters, some of whom have died already, preventing this from getting any worse than it already has.
Yeah, it's a terrible tragedy out there in your neck of the woods, mate, and I hope that they can bring that thing under control soon.
Yeah, fucking California.
Cali Fire is doing the best they can, I guess, on this, but this is the problem when you have bad water management and a number of other things hitting a region that's been in severe drought for, oh, Jesus, how long? Decades
Oh, dude,
now.
I mean, and so many places are in drought now because essentially the aquifers have been diverted, and so much water has been brought to the surface, sublimated. Well, I forget what the term is, but fucking making big old holes in the ground that people sink into, removing the groundwater that trees used to rely on for their roots, so there's no longer a cloud layer over the places that need it most. You know, it's humans suck, and they've made places suck. So I guess that's the message there. But speaking more on Asia, why don't we talk about minority rights crisis, and then I'll get into one of my other pieces here.
Not a problem. So this is from the Washington Post, which, to be honest, I rarely ever read now, but I found this one quite interesting. So at least, let's see if I can find the copy I had open. Here we go. There we go. Right, so Asia's minority rights crisis is getting worse. On Monday, the Indian government announced a decision that may render millions of people stateless. When the draft of the National Register of Citizens for the state of Assam, situated in the country's northeast, they left an estimated 4 million people off the list, meaning that their proof of citizenship was rejected by the government as it updated the state rolls. Assam is on the front line of India's battle over illegal immigration, with politicians grandstanding over the threat of, quote, infiltrators from neighboring Bangladesh. Over the decades, the state has experienced bouts of bloody inter-ethnic strife. Residents left off the list may still have time to appeal the government's decision, and my colleague Ann Gowan noted that there are no mass deportation plans in place. But the draft does raise the question of where migrants will go after the numbers are finalized. Bangladesh's government does not acknowledge them as citizens, she wrote. I'm worried about my future, Sailor Begum, 40, who was born in Assam but was not on the list, told the Washington Post. My parents were born here. We have all the documents. Still, my family's names are not on the list. I'm scared. In an echo of Myanmar's treatment of stateless Rohingya Muslims, top officials in India's Hindu nationalist government cast a whole swath of Muslims in Assam as an alien menace. Now, analysts fear looming chaos as India's prime minister courts votes ahead of upcoming parliamentary elections. Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, which rules the state, has insisted in the past that illegal Muslim immigrants will be deported. But neighboring Bangladesh will definitely not accede to such a quest, explains the BBC's Sutik Biswas. Chances are India will end up creating the newest cohort of stateless people, raising the specter of a homegrown crisis that will echo the Rohingya people who fled Myanmar for Bangladesh. Readers of today's Worldview are all too familiar with the debates over identity and immigration rolling in the West. President Trump and like-minded populist leaders in Europe represent a powerful illiberal current in world politics, steeped in nationalist grievances. But in Asia, home to the majority of the world's population, these politics are all the more volatile and risk even larger explosions of violence. From India to the Philippines, a host of Asian countries that emerged from the wars and empires of the last century boast ostensibly democratic, multi-ethnic societies. But that pluralism is being sternly challenged by a deepening majoritarianism. Oh, you still there, mate? All right, I'll keep going while Jeremiah tries to rejoin. In Myanmar, the Rohingya have long been the scapegoats of the powers that be. The country's new civilian leadership has remained in lockstep with its overweening generals, pandering to the Buddhist nationalism of its majority while systematically depriving the Rohingya of the same rights as their compatriots. Following last year's campaign of apparent ethnic cleansing by Myanmar's military and affiliated vigilante groups, more than 700,000 Rohingya remained in squalid refugee camps in eastern Bangladesh. The arrival of summer monsoons over the past 2 months has created a sanitation nightmare, my colleague V.D. Doshi reported, and helped spread diseases such as diphtheria. Meanwhile, Myanmar's government has stymied a UN-supervised process of repatriation by refusing to grant citizenship to many Rohingya refugees seeking the right to return. Beyond the growing pool of stateless people in Asia, potentially numbering in the millions, there's even more widespread issue of trampling minority rights. In Indonesia last week, the country's constitutional court rejected a petition from members of the oft-persecuted Ahmadiyya sect of Islam to revoke a long-standing blasphemy law. Similar laws are on the books in other Muslim-majority countries like Pakistan. The law has been invoked to jail a prominent ethnic Chinese Christian politician on charges critics say are politically motivated. Quote, the government's refusal to seek the law's revocation raises troubling questions about its commitment to the human rights for all Indonesians, noted a Human Rights Watch in a statement. Indonesia cannot claim to be a tolerant Muslim country while continuing religious discrimination and rights violations enabled by its blasphemy law. A recent column in The Economist noted that, quote, wealth inequalities and ethnic divisions make Southeast Asia fertile ground for his style of majoritarian populism, pointing to the growing clout of would-be demagogues in countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines. And then there's China, the regional hegemon. Though there are more than 50 officially recognized ethnic minorities in China, it is hardly a poster child for tolerance. In the far western region of Xinjiang, home to the Uyghurs, a Turkic Muslim minority, Beijing has installed a crushing apparatus of state control and surveillance to suppress any sign of separatism. It imposes harsh restrictions on ordinary Uyghurs' ability to practice their faith, and has encouraged Han Chinese migration to the region to dilute its demographic makeup. As an aside, I find it amusing that the Washington Post is complaining about a region having its ethnic makeup diluted by migration, given their promotion of the same everywhere else. But hey,
well, but those
we'll let that slide.
Those are European countries, so I mean,
yeah, they don't count.
Yeah, they don't count. Just to get this like addressed before we move on, we got Camp in the chat who says also not letting fires burn naturally just makes it worse, and yes, absolutely it does. You've got the essentially there's a dense layer of underbrush building that's like really easy to burn, and since firefighters fight the fire before that can be burned off, forests aren't going through their natural burn-offs, and they're not going through enough of them to clear off the stuff that's easy to burn. So I mean, coincidentally, there happens to be a lot of really easily burnable stuff on the ground, and it burns. So I mean, humans suck. It's another place I can say that.
No, human interference can suck. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean, you can put it that way. I'm a dirty cynic.
Anyway, so where was I? Oh, there we are. Uyghurs in exile allege that tens of thousands of their compatriots have been consigned to, quote, re-education camps, which both, quote, disappear potential dissidents and seek to indoctrinate them according to the Communist Party ideology. Where have we seen this before? Chinese authorities justify their policies of repression by pointing to the threat of Islamic terrorism. But as BuzzFeed's Meghna Rajap, I'm really sorry, I cannot pronounce your surname at all, Rajagopalan, reported in an expose earlier this month, those security concerns have provided the platform for a pervasive system control which now extends across borders. Rights groups say that the government's crackdown amounts to the collective punishment of millions of people over the actions of a handful, she wrote after speaking to numerous Uyghurs living overseas. Every person interviewed for this article said state security operatives told them that their families could be sent to or would remain in internment camps for, quote, re-education if they did not comply with their demands. It was a campaign, they said, that aimed not only to gather details about Uyghurs' activities abroad, but also to sow discord within exile communities in the West and intimidate people in the hopes of preventing them from speaking out against the Chinese state. This may reflect the extreme measures that only one of those world's most powerful authoritarian states can implement. But in an age of combustive nationalism, China's stance is far from the exception. And that's pretty much the end of the article. However, I'd like to make a quick aside on this, because another Washington Post article, I think, so I can't pull it up now because I'll probably have hit my limit. They made a mention of a woman who, it was either The Guardian, they made a mention of a woman from China who just got her British citizenship and had been issued a British passport. And the Chinese are very funny about if you have another passport. If you get citizenship anywhere else, you're not a Chinese citizen. And as soon as you bring your Chinese passport with you, they will clip the end of it off. And basically that alone means you are no longer a citizen of China. You are no longer in any way, shape, or form affiliated with that nation. And they don't even ask if you want to remain Chinese or if you want to retain your British citizenship. They will just destroy your Chinese citizenship off the bat. And because they've got your passport, there's nothing you can do about it. Remember, the documents that you hold are all important, and if somebody else holds them, well, they're theirs, aren't they? You still there, mate?
Yeah, sorry. Fucking okay. So this is something I'm gonna address very soon. I'm getting it all set up probably today, so it might be tomorrow that that it changes to Discord, because I hit the mic button to unmute my mic fucking 6 times before it actually unmuted. So anyway, but yeah, like, whenever you give government authority over travel, things like this are going to happen, especially if it's sort of a regressive government like China. So, I mean, this is this sort of thing. Whenever you have this sort of control over immigration, and whenever you have this sort of this sort of idea of jingoism and nationalism that China does, saying, you know, essentially we are the greatest in the same way that the U.S. does. Only with a cultural like blockade, meaning that you can't like access certain sites through their firewalls and shit, to make sure that it sticks in the brains of the people and they can't get the alternate perspective that, hey, maybe jingoism is bad, okay? This is gonna happen. It's unfortunate, but until the culture changes, the government won't. And that's true anywhere else too. That's my assessment, at least. So there's that, and you also had, I think I want to end on the articles about the police. You also had Venezuela scarce gasoline will be sold only to the politically loyal. So I think that's a reasonably good one to bring up right after we talk about effectively, you know, tyranny. I think we should talk about tyranny here too.
Fair enough. Let's have a tyranny chat. Am I still on mute? No, there we go.
There you go.
Cool. Right. So we can start with Venezuela if you want.
Yeah,
and then we can hit up the tyranny regime in the States.
Yeah, I'll be bringing up a couple instances of police brutality that I think stuck out to me. And by the way, congratulations to the cast of Guardians for sticking up for James Gunn. Jokes are fucking jokes, and even though he shouldn't have had to apologize, and I hope that y'all someday see that, sticking with the people that are there, making things better in many ways, and that just used some words that the fucking virtue signalers don't like. Good on you. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, well, quickly on Gunn, if he did anything, then to hell with him. But if he hasn't actually done anything except make a joke, that's it. There's no evidence of anything else.
In 2011, like they had to dig. But anyway, on to Venezuela.
So from Merco Press, the South Atlantic news agency, Venezuela's scarce gasoline will be sold only to the politically loyal. Now, just for a quick point, though, scarce may be a bit of an exaggeration, simply because they apparently are currently in holding of one of the largest supplies in the world, not underground, but actually above ground, because they can't fucking sell it. And apparently they're not willing to sell it to their own people unless they're politically friendly. So Maduro ordered a census on the 3rd to 5th of August to determine how many vehicle owners possessed a Homeland Identity Card, a document first created in 2017. They're taking steps to direct dwindling motor fuel to politically loyal vehicle owners. They created this identity card to strengthen government's social and political surveillance capabilities. The Homeland Identity Card, which the government now requires from Venezuelans seeking food and housing assistance, is separate from the long-standing National Identity Card with a unique identification number that is common in many countries. Maduro said the census is aimed at reducing waste and smuggling to neighboring countries. There will be changes in how the national vehicle fleet uses its fuel, Maduro said. Critics including senior oil union officials warn that the census aimed at linking vehicle ownership to possession of a Homeland Identity Card is the first step in a plan to tighten government controls by allocating increasingly scarce fuel supplies to government loyalists. Vehicle owners without valid cards would have to pay higher fuel prices or could be denied fuel altogether, according to a senior official of the ruling Socialist Party, PSUV, familiar with the government's still evolving fuel control plans. Maduro did not mention possible price increases at the pump, where gasoline and diesel, when they can be found, are sold for virtually nothing. Apparently, the government's plans to raise local gasoline and diesel prices to international levels in conjunction with a new national currency, called the Sovereign Bolivar, will be launched on the 20th of August to replace the now worthless Strong Bolivar that was created in 2007 by late President Hugo Chavez. Maduro last raised the local fuel prices on the 17th of February 2016 by less than 1 US cent per gallon. Education Minister Elias Jawa, a senior PSUV official described by Presidential Palace's official as one of the architects of the census plan, said the government wants to, quote, progressively internationalize local fuel prices to a race up to 12 billion in annual losses USD that the state-owned PDV incurs from local fuel sales. Jesus Christ. $12 billion in yearly sales, in yearly losses even, from trying to sell oil to their local country. I mean, can you imagine that as a yearly loss over the course of a decade?
Well, it certainly wouldn't operate in this sort of in a sort of free market context. It would certainly not operate if it was a business. It would just, I mean, unless like Daddy just like loved your business so much that he kept on throwing money at it, and also Daddy was Rockefeller.
It gets
but
worse,
when you got statism, it's like really inefficient. So,
and when you've got socialist statism, it goes into hyperinflation. So, at the current black market exchange rate of over 3.5 million strong bolivars per dollar, drivers on paper could buy over 792,500 gallons of gasoline from the equivalent of $1 in Venezuela. A Venezuelan 50-cent coin denominated in the new sovereign bolivar would still buy over 13,000 gallons of gasoline at current local regulated price. Maduro said the huge disparity between local and international prices is driving massive smuggling to Colombia and other neighboring countries. So, yeah, it's getting a bit hot down south in Venezuela town. But, I mean, conceptualize this. I mean, you could buy 13,000 gallons of gasoline in Venezuela today with $1.
Well, right, and you know, on that level, you want loyalism. You can't have an economy like this because it's just going to make the dollar seem stronger, and by virtue of that, the U.S. economy. The only way that they can make it seem any different is by forcing loyalism, by criminalizing anybody who doesn't say that that Maduro is great, which I think they were, you know, in the progress of doing.
They've already done that. They've already done that, and they're just finding new ways of doing it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you don't advocate that he's great, not just agree when they come round, but you have to say it to your neighbors too. Otherwise, you're not going to get this card that allows you to drive.
Yeah.
Not because you can't drive, but because you need to be able to buy fuel.
We've got Camp in chat saying Wow Gold is worth more than a Bolivar. Would not be surprised. Also, hello,
Yep.
Apollo, and hello, Kitty. I hope to see you here in the future. So, and Apollo says, smash that state and smash that like button. So, yes, definitely do both of those things. And also be sure to come around to the show every day because we need 4,000 watch hours here for monetization. And eventually this will be streaming to both this platform and Bad Morning News' official channel, which I'm setting up here very shortly. But that's going to be over 20-25 episodes. But yeah, is there any more to that article for you to finish?
I think there's a little bit more. Okay. Venezuelan military officials working on the country's international borders and Colombian defense and energy ministry officials have said fuel smuggling from Venezuela has fallen significantly in recent years, in line with shortages stemming from PDVSA's diminished refinery operations. Defense Ministry now estimates unofficially that less than 15,000 barrels per day are smuggled by land out of Venezuela, compared with the over 100,000 barrels per day as recently as 2015. A Venezuelan Defense Ministry official said some of the land-based smuggling has been displaced by more sophisticated illicit waterborne shipments from PDVSA terminals. PDVSA local refineries with a combined nameplate capacity of 1.3 million barrels per day are also almost shut down completely, says a senior oil union official at a PDVSA's 940,000 CRP refining complex in Paraguana. Local gasoline consumption has dropped below 140,000 barrels per day, all of it imported mainly through PDVSA's crude for fuel swaps with foreign suppliers. PDVSA said its refineries are operating normally and declined further to comment. Venezuela's national vehicle fleet totals over 4.4 million units, including 3.35 million automobiles, over 326,000 heavy cargo trucks, over 385,000 light pickup trucks, almost 100,000 buses, over 62,000 licensed taxi buses, and 220,000 motorcycle taxis, according to the Transportation Ministry. The license of licensed motorcycle taxis vastly understates the number of motorcycles circulating nationally, for which there is no accurate registry. Independent public passenger and cargo transport groups say there are over 85% of trucks and buses are idle because of lack of spare parts, such as tires, batteries, spark plugs, and hoses. So yeah, basically, Venezuela is doing everything it can to commit suicide, financially, at least. You never throttle the lifeblood of your country. If you let transportation die, that's it. You're you're done.
Well,
There's no coming back.
I mean, you know, maybe, and this is me being cynical again. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you get your country's economy to die, blame capitalism, and then effectively say, well, this is why we need this other system. So I'm gonna put this other system down, and suddenly you have the USSV.
USSV.
USSSV, USSUV.
It's the I think it's PSUV.
Well, right, but like what I'm saying is like maybe they want to cripple their own economy on purpose so that they can like throw the previous system that wasn't as effective at revenue generation under the bus. I don't know.
Maybe it just seems that they could have done that already by just saying, look at the amount of hyperinflation we're experiencing. I mean, 1,000,000% since last year is what it's currently forecast to go.
But if you want to have a statist socialist paradise, because you know libertarian socialism is theoretically possible, even though I think it's very unstable. If you want to have a statist socialist paradise, you know, one of the first steps might be being insular from the outside world, and you might have to have excuses for why you're no longer allowed to have American oil. You know, especially in the day and age of the internet. But speaking of America, I've got a police brutality doubleheader for y'all today, both from the freethoughtproject.com. Let's start with this one. After armed homeowner defends family from home invader, cops show up and kill him. An armed homeowner successfully defended himself against an intruder who was harming a child, only to be killed by police when they arrived. Aurora, Colorado. When an armed intruder broke into a family's home early Monday morning and reportedly began harming a juvenile inside, the homeowner did what he was supposed to do. He armed himself, called 911, and defended his home. And he was successful. However, after he'd successfully fended off the home invader by killing him, police then showed up and killed the innocent homeowner. According to police, they received a call from the homeowner notifying them that a man had broken into the home. When officers arrived, the scene was chaotic, according to police. Officers arrived to a very chaotic and violent scene, Aurora Police Chief Nick Metz wrote in a news release issued Monday afternoon. Police say they heard gunshots inside the home, and when they ran inside, they found an armed man. The armed man was the homeowner, and they killed him. There were no reports from officers claiming that the homeowner opened fire or even raised the gun toward officers. Also, none of the officers were hurt during the incident. After clearing the scene, according to Metz, police found the intruder dead on the bathroom floor. Metz explained that officers also found a child in residence who'd been seriously injured by the intruder. The child was taken to the hospital for serious but non-life-threatening injuries caused by the intruder. According to Metz, the identities of the two men will be released by the Adams County Coroner's Office. Metz also explained that the officer who killed the homeowner is on routine paid administrative leave. As the Denver Channel reports, the Aurora Police Major Crimes Unit, the Denver Police Department, and the 17th Judicial District Attorney Office will conduct the investigation into the shooting. Police are also asking anyone who witnessed the shooting to call Detective Randy Hansen at 303-739-6710. I'm going to repeat that in case my mic fucked up or Google hates me. 303-739-6710. Quote, "This is a very heartbreaking and tragic situation for everyone involved. We are providing assistance through our victim advocates to help the family of the deceased resident through this very difficult time," Metz said. Sadly, homeowners calling the police for help with armed intruders only to be shot or killed is not an isolated incident. As the Free Thought Project reported earlier this year, dashcam footage captured the disturbing scene as deputies Keith Tyner and Richard Powell of the Charleston County Sheriff's Department arrived at the home of then 26-year-old Bryant Hayward, who had called 911 just as he'd been the victim of a home invasion. Hayward had fended off the two intruders who were threatening his home and his life, only to be critically shot and paralyzed by those who he had desperately called for help. The cops responsible for leaving an innocent man paralyzed for doing the right thing and calling them were not responsible. The cop who shot the man in the neck on video was said to have, quote, acted appropriately by his superiors, and he was not charged. We have concluded that Deputy Keith Tyner had acted appropriately in response to an apparent deadly threat. Senior Assistant Deputy Attorney General Heather Weiss said in a letter to state investigators in January, and that there is insufficient evidence to merit criminal prosecution. Indeed, the officer in Aurora who shot and killed the homeowner in the story above will likely find himself in a similar situation of no consequences for killing. There's the end of that article. And then, just to spice things up, we've got watch. Cop opens fire near busy family park and kills unarmed man for walking toward him. Footage from witnesses is raising questions about why a police officer shot and killed an unarmed man for walking toward him on the side of a busy street. Lehigh, actually, probably County, Pennsylvania. A disturbing video was posted on Facebook that shows a police officer open fire and shoot multiple rounds at a man who appears to be slowly walking toward him on the side of the street near an amusement park. The man is yet to be identified, and the details released by the South Whitehall Township Police Department have been scarce. Police Chief Glenn Dorney confirmed that the man was killed in the shooting and told WNAP News that the incident started around 6 p.m. on Saturday. The officers did respond to a report of a man in the area they investigated, encountered, and the incident unfolded from there, Chief Dorney said. The video begins as a witness watches a school bus and several cars pass by on a busy street near a local amusement park. A police cruiser is parked on the side of the street, and there appears to be a man in a black t-shirt and blue jeans standing next to the front passenger door. The man then continues to walk down the street away from the car. The officer exits the car and the man turns around. As soon as the man starts walking back toward the car, the officer can be heard yelling, "Get on the ground, get on the ground." It should be noted that when the man is walking toward the officers, he is walking at a normal rate and his arms are swinging back and forth. He does not appear to reach for anything in his pocket, and it does not appear that he was armed or trying to harm the officer. The officer gives just seconds from the time he yells, "Get on the ground," until the time he opens fire and shoots 5 rounds in the man's direction. The video shows the man attempt to put his hands up before his body collapses on the ground as he is hit by bullets. It's not clear why the officer chose to open fire in such a crowded area where one of his bullets could have hit a nearby car carrying an innocent family, and it's also not clear why the officer believed the man was such a legitimate threat that he deserved to die. Witnesses told the Morning Call that, quote, "The man who was shot did not appear to be armed, and the report confirmed that no weapons were recovered at the scene." Lehigh County District Attorney Jim Martin told reporters that police were initially contacted with reports that the man was, quote, "interfering with traffic in the area." He claimed that the man tried to, quote, "rip the window out of a vehicle." Witnesses said that they saw the man hanging onto the window of a moving car and then hanging onto the window of a police car before he was shot and killed. The man's background and his mental history are unclear. In fact, Martin claimed that police still do not know the man's identity, and the report from the coroner's office listed him as, quote, "John Doe." While it is not clear whether the man was mentally ill, his actions do raise questions about his mental health. As Free Thought Project has reported, when police officers receive extensive training on how to accurately fire their weapons, they often receive very little training on how to de-escalate situations with mentally ill individuals. There are a number of other ways in which the officer could have subdued the man, and the fact that he chose to immediately resort to his firearms serves as a reminder that police training in the United States needs a serious shift in focus. And then you can watch the video below.
Well, yeah, well, you know what they say. Cops are like a box of chocolates. They'll kill your dog. Apparently, they'll kill you too.
Yeah.
Just for walking up to them.
Yeah. Well,
at least in the U.S.
Just for not dropping to your knees as soon as they fucking bark orders at you like the fucking pig dogs they are. And just an update on the car fire. There are 10 states that have resources on scene and 6 states that have resources on the way. The states that have resources on scene include Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, and also Wisconsin and Michigan. And the states that have aid on the way, not Wisconsin, fucking just Michigan. Sorry, the way Michigan is split up is fucked. All right. So with that in mind, the states that have resources on the way are Wisconsin, Florida, Georgia, fucking looks like Maryland has resources on the way, and also I think that's Maryland. And also because fucking I don't specifically know because this map that they posted here is written by a cartoon artist. Also, New Jersey and Maine have resources on the way. So thanks to those people for making it easier for these firefighters. And I hope that that gets resolved fairly quickly. And the reason I brought up the police brutality stories here is just to remind Americans that while we brought up a lot of civil rights abuses in Asia and Venezuela, it's not much better here. There is no jingoism possible if you look at the full picture. And I hope that anybody who listens to this show regularly or anything else we put out realizes that and acts accordingly when talking about politics.
Yeah, to just round up, nobody's really free. I mean, I'm here in Britain, I'm less free than you guys are over there, probably at the moment, in some ways at least. But in other ways, at least this country doesn't expect me to pay taxes wherever I am in the world to Britain. And won't try and charge me for a fucking exit fee.
But hey, man, you can always leave if you don't like it, except that you can't, and accept that restrictions apply, and accept that you still have to pay money to the crown.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not the crown, actually. It's the IRS that I technically would have to pay things to if I got to give up the U.S. citizenship.
Hey, Daniel, every president has royal blood in them, and if you look at the bloodlines and the way that they work, basically, we never left Europe.
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, Britain anyway, because Europe technically wasn't a thing then, so.
True.
Anyway, that I think concludes this episode of Bad Morning News. Tune in tomorrow, where I'm going to be starting to like the entire thing by discussing how NATO needs to go the way of the Warsaw Pact. Feel free to share this around. Feel free to smash that subscribe button, decimate that like button. You know, completely obliterate the family and bloodline of the notification bell. And yeah, have a bad morning and a bad rest of your day. And fuck the system, smash the state.
Bad morning, everyone.